Welcome to Kyle Anthony's UFC Betting Show. I am Kyle Anthony, and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the prediction show for UFC Fight Night 189. We've got Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Augusto Sakai. This is going to be an interesting fight here. We are coming off a 2-1 2 weeks ago on our client plays. Also went 1-1 on the client plays. We did have as one of our winners, Carlos Esparza went up there, got the job done, some nice plus money. And we did also hit on Rob Font, who went out there, and I gotta say, he really put on a performance. We talked about here in the show. One big thing was going to be his striking. His jab, utilizing his range. Really took advantage of that. Where most of it was really, you had the big shots coming from Cody, looking for the big hooks, did not have the opportunity to really land the big shots up until really that last minute of the fight. He kind of went all guns blazing. So we had a nice performance there, ended up cashing in. So we look to cash in this weekend. We did have a nice weekend off, so hope everyone had a nice Memorial Day weekend. I certainly did. Did some drinking, did some relaxing, and did some capping as well. So got a string of a lot of events coming up now. This is what we got to go in there, get hot into the summer, so looking forward to that. So let's get into right now the first client play. The first replay that we have, which is a client play this weekend, and it is on the main event between Rozenstruik versus Sakai. Now you got the current line, you've got Rozenstruik, he's a minus 125, and you also have Sakai, who is a plus 105. So minus 125, plus 105 here on this, close to a pick'em overall. We're going to run down 3 fights for each fighter, see what we see if one fighter can expose the other, and if the line makes sense to place a wager. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to first talk Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and 3 fights ago, he fought Francis Ngannou. Now, this was a fight here where one that Rozenstruik, he wanted. He pushed for it. He talked about it. He said he wanted him. This is where, a lot of people weren't really looking to fight Francis. This was one where he wanted it. Well, boy, did he get it. He goes in there in this fight. Not much to break down here. 20 seconds long, where really it was a leg kick, I think, that Rozenstruik threw, and then just a barrage of wild haymakers landing on Rozenstruik, knocks him out cold, puts him up against the fence. And even if you watch the rerun of that, or just the replay of it, I mean, once even Rozenstruik was down, and Guy lands about 3 or 4 more big shots on his head, but ends up completely knocking him out cold. Great showing for Ngannou, but Rozenstruik there, it really, I think this fight, and we're going to talk about it, but this fight, I think, really changed how Rozenstruik fights overall. So in that fight there, he goes up there, he loses in a first round knockout loss. Now you got 2 fights ago, he fought Junior Dos Santos. Now we know what Dos Santos' situation is with the UFC and all these other things, age and everything else. But this was a fight here where it was a good stylistic matchup. You got 2 guys that are going to look to stand. They're going to look to really box. You got really the kickboxing of Rozenstruik, and you've got JDS has good boxing, good range, power. So this was a really interesting fight. The one thing here that showed, which it already kind of showed, in the next fight as well, that Rozenstruik kind of started to become a little more timid than he was. And this was a spot here where overall in that first round, not a lot going on in this, both pitter-patter kind of combinations from each side. Utilizing his boxing, Rozenstruik looked good, utilizing his boxing, good strikes to the body, headshots, really Rozenstruik, throwing some leg kicks, but pretty much for the most of it, and you heard his corner even during the fight, throw, get active. We want you to get active. Start throwing. And JDS kind of was waiting also for the for a spot to counter. Rozenstruik was, so kind of was a little bit of a stalemate early in that first round. And then going into the end of the round, I think that JDS started landing a little bit, but very close first round, pitter patter shots. Both guys really kind of up against the cage a little bit, clinching, backing out. Not really too much going on. More moving around the cage than landing these big shots. Going into the second round, JDS I thought looked pretty good early. He was doing the same thing, mixing up his strikes, mixing up his boxing. Rozenstruik still looking for the big shot, and even in the corner, you hear Rozenstruik's corner saying, "You got to get more active. You got to get more active." And goes into this second round, ends up, having a nice exchange. And this was a spot here where one thing about about JDS is that he turtles up. I mean, that has been, that has been something that he does now more in his career, where once he's kind of up against the fence, he turtles up. And this was a spot here where Rozenstruck, trying to corner him in, trying to get him up against the fence a little bit, where Rozenstruck really isn't a pressure kind of fighter. He likes space, likes to be able to utilize his kicks, utilize his kickboxing. And this is a spot where he finally was able to get JDS up against the cage a little bit, or kind of smother him. And that was where he landed a nice shot, dropped him, he kind of got back up, landed another shot, ends the fight. And overall, I gotta say that even with this knockout win over JDS, which is a nice win for him, I didn't think the performance was that impressive. I really didn't think it was that impressive. I mean, again, he was gun shy, didn't really see that he was doing too much there, where JDS kind of just was, just kind of outboxing him and sticking and moving. So he does go out there and get this victory. He gets a knockout win over Junior Dos Santos. And then most recently against Cyril Gane. This was a fight where, not really much that you really need to rewatch this fight, but this was a situation where you got these two guys that are more kind of counter strikers, and they do have power, but boy, they just kind of danced around the cage for 5 full rounds. It was probably one of the worst fights to just in the heavyweight division, maybe ever, with limited strikes and just not much output from each guy, and pretty much even you saw, Gane wants to, or Gane, however you really want to say, wants to, he wants to counter. They both want to counter. They both have big power. But Gane was very comfortable just kind of, sticking to the game plan. He knew that Rosenstruck was not being active, was not really pushing forward. So he was comfortable even as a, crowd, crowd. Well, there's no crowd there, but everybody in the MMA community was just, they really wanted to see this, a banger, fight, 2 big heavyweights, 2 guys are going to look to stand and bang, and boy, it was the complete opposite. But really, Rosenstruck just wasn't doing much. I mean, Gane wasn't doing much either, but they both were kind of dancing around the cage, here and there some shots. Even, again, you had the corner for Rosenstruck, pleading with him. You gotta throw, you gotta get active, you gotta throw. And he just yesed them, go out there and kind of dance around the cage, not really doing too much overall. This was a sweeping decision for Gane. He goes out there, wins all 5 rounds. An ugly performance, I thought, for Rosenstruck. So taking that going into Saturday night, I think there's a lot you can take from it on his last 2 performances, definitely in general. And again, we'll kind of put that all together at the end of this breakdown. And there's other side, you've got Augusto Sakai. Sakai, again, a slight underdog here. Now, 3 fights ago, he fought Marcin Tybura. And Tybura, I'm pretty high on Tybura. I think that, he's starting to kind of hit his stride a little bit. He's starting to gain a little bit more in the boxing kind of footwork there. And then, he's kind of piecing it together a little bit better with level changes and kind of allowing himself to utilize his grappling. He's a big guy, utilizing his takedowns. And this is a fight here where Sakai had said going into this fight, I am not going to allow him to breathe. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to push. And that's what Sakai likes to do. He likes to get in your face. He likes to make it dirty. He's a pretty light-footed guy for how big he is, so he's looking to kind of stick and move and then pressure forward with the big shots. He goes out there in the first minute and completely obliterates, melts Tybura. Goes out there, got him up against the cage, and as soon as he kind of got him up against the cage, he just unloaded. One thing about Sakai he's got great Muay Thai, comes from a Muay Thai background, was able to utilize, kind of had one hook in there, throwing some nice shots, ended up flatlining Tybura in that first round, in that first minute. Great showing for him right there. He did what he needed to do, and he does show that the pressure that he has is overwhelming. He can go out there, and he can get the job done when he's going out there, and he's looking to actually cut distance, get in your face, and land the big shots. So he goes out there, and he gets the first round knockout. 2 fights ago, he fought Blagoy Ivanov. I just totally butchered that. Blagoy Ivanov. And in this fight here, this was one where, Ivanov is, doesn't have the big gas tank, but he has got a granite chin. He's looking to scrap. He's not scared to back up. And he's the guy that actually is a pressure fighter as well. He wants to get in your face. He wants to make it dirty. And this was an interesting fight because you've got Sakai, who's a kind of fighter, again, who wants to be he wants to be the hammer, not the nail. And this was a fight here where actually Ivanov started to pressure Sakai a little bit more, and it was kind of taking, I think, Sakai out of his game. I think this was a very tough stylistic matchup for Sakai, just because, again, that takes away his big weapon. His big weapon is getting in tight, pushing forward, walking his opponents down, and Ivanov is totally fine going in there, getting dirty, and I think that kind of threw off Sakai early in the fight. Blagoy was landing some big shots, getting in tight. He's fine in the clinch. He's got some grappling credentials also. So Ivanov is not scared to get in the clinch, look for the takedowns, look to kind of, grapple in there, get in the clinch. And that was where also, both of these guys started landing leg kicks, kind of chipping away. I think that first round kind of went to Ivanov. I would kind of give him that first round. But going into that second round, really is where Sakai started mixing it up a little bit. And Blagoy, the gas tank kind of started teetering down. That's when Sakai started pushing forward. Ivanov didn't have as much in the tank as he kept pushing forward. You saw he was, big breaths trying to just kind of keep it going. As he chipped away, he goes out there over the next 2 rounds, gets a split decision victory. But this was a fight here where I think stylistically it was a very, very tough fight for Sakai. Although he got the victory, very tough fight for him again. Stylistically, it was a tough matchup for him, and I'll kind of wrap it up again at the end onto why. But before we do, we will talk about the last fight that he had, the most recent fight he had, which was against Alistair Overeem. This was a fight here where I thought was extremely interesting. And I think this shows a lot of really where Sakai, again, his strategy is there. You saw in these first, the 5-round fight, you saw in the first 2.5 rounds, it was all Sakai. I mean, going forward, again, you've got the high-level kickboxing, which is very similar to Rosenstruck. Obviously they come from that background. And you've got a guy who got in his face. Right away, Sakai gets in his face, pushes forward, lands the big shots, had, Overeem up against the fence, turtling up, kept going with it. And that was even where, there was a point where it almost kind of looked like, he's going to put him away. He's going to put Overeem away. I mean, it's very, very close to that. And again, the iffiness with the chin and some of the movement of the awkward movement and running away when he's got his back up against the cage that Overeem does. This was a spot where Sakai kind of took advantage of that and kept landing big shots. The game changer was pretty much, I think it was the end of that 3rd round, where pretty much, again, the first half of the fight was Sakai going out there and pretty much dominating, taking control of the fight, piling up the damage on Overeem. But as soon as Overeem gets the one takedown, lands a nice takedown, some brutal ground and pound that he lands on Sakai, changed the entire face of the game. All of a sudden at that point, Sakai's hurt, Sakai's bleeding, goes into that 4th round, more of that, goes out there, lands at big shots, hammering down on him. The takedowns were there, and I think this was something that completely threw off Sakai. I think that he really thought, hey, this is a stand-up matchup. I'm going to stand, I'm going to bang. And when he started getting the takedowns and he started getting bloodied up, he really, I think, kind of lost focus, was not ready for it. Overeem goes out there, gets the TKO victory late in that fight. Interesting performance overall, but it does show, again, the smothering strength that Sakai has. Overeem lasted and came up with a nice game plan of getting the takedowns, but you're not going to have the option as Rosenstruck to get those takedowns. So with that being said, wrapping this all together here, now you've got Rosenstruck is a solid kickboxer, has the ability, has the power, has some of that strength, wants to stand in the pocket, wants to utilize some space, utilizing his kickboxing as well. The other side, you've got Sakai, good boxing, strong Muay Thai background. He's very comfortable in the clinch. Again, that's going to be a spot that I think he could utilize. He's very comfortable in the clinch and very light on his feet. And I think that is a big part of this. Now, Sakai has a lot of movement, and he has shown that he can have a gas tank. He can kind of go in there and keep moving around like that. He's not going to be flat-footed. Where you've got someone like Rozenstruck, who's a little bit more flat-footed, a kind of guy that kind of wants to dig in, wait for the counter, throw the big shot. And Sakai's the kind of guy that's going to be bouncing around and looking to get in tight. Even if he gets in tight and he's looking to actually go in there in the clinch, I think that's going to be a home base for him. I think he's going to be looking in the smaller cage. I think there's a lot of opportunity for him to cut distance and push forward. Now, you've seen on the other side here with Rozenstruck, the one part that he has is lack of offense. So the biggest way that you can really kind of keep somebody away from you who's a pressure fighter is volume. Keep that volume out. Push out volume. Make him think twice about cutting distance. Now, Rozenstruck has the power. He's got a nice check hook. He's able to kind of utilize certain things with leg kicks, and definitely has the ability. But the volume is not there, and that's going to really, really help Sakai when he's looking to get in the clinch, get in tight, make it dirty boxing. And the other side there, the vulnerability of the takedowns for Rozenstruck as well. I mean, he has looked completely lost anytime he has his back on the mat. Anytime he just looks completely lost, he's pretty much just trying to survive, and that's something that Sakai could possibly look to do, just because it seems like such a path of least resistance that it doesn't really seem like Sakai is a kind of guy who's going to look to do that. But I think there's an option there where if he's in the clinch, he can do that and really start to wear and pile up the damage on Rosenstruck. And I think also another big part is that, Rozenstruik fought JDS and he got the victory there. Nice victory for him, but JDS pretty much played the perfect game plan to what Rozenstruik likes. Rozenstruik wants that space, wants to be able to move around, doesn't want to be pressured, wants to have that distance, utilize some of his striking. I still think even there he didn't really look that good over it, but that's the kind of style I think that he's very comfortable at. Here with Sakai, who's going to push forward, get in tight, not scared to take a shot, to give one, that is going to cause a lot of problems for him overall. So, with that also, and just how different he has been, Rozenstruik has been since he has lost to Ngannou. He took a brutal knockout, and he pretty much there has just kind of toned down the striking, toned down the volume. Really being very averse to any damage, kind of wanting to steer clear of it, does not want to get blasted again, and that I think has changed him as a fighter. Where Sakai, I think, has looked good in some of these spots. He's beaten some pretty good fighters, and even the most recent loss is something that he's not going to see against Rozenstruik. Rozenstruik is not taking him to the ground. So this being a stand-up fight where Sakai is not going to also have to worry about the takedowns, I think he could just bulldoze forward and throw big shots and not be scared. That is something I think that kind of threw him off a little bit with the Ivanov fight, where Ivanov is has the ability for the takedowns. Tybura also does have those takedown abilities, but he was able to bulldoze forward. And I think that is a great spot. So in this spot here, I like Sakai. It is a client play. I do have 5 client plays up this weekend. This will be one of the 5. I am taking Sakai here. I really like this spot here. I think the price is good. I like the price here. I think that this is a great spot for him. I think a stylistic nightmare for Rozenstruik. I think even over 5, Sakai can get the knockout. Sakai could wear over him for 5 rounds. He could work positioning in the clinch, where really all Rozenstruik has, in my opinion, is one big puncher's chance where he could land a big shot. Surprised he actually is the favorite here. I would easily switch these, and cap him. Sakai's chances are even higher than the -125. So in this spot here, I do like the plus money. I am taking Augusto Sakai to win in the main event as a client play. And the other one I'm going to just give out real quickly also is Tom Breeze versus Antonio Arroyo. And this is a spot here where this is a play that is not for the faint of heart. Now we're going to talk about this. I think this is a great value play here. And really taking a look at these two guys, you've got Breeze, who is a -240. You've got Arroyo is a +205. I think that is just a massively wide line for where this is. So really the first thing we're going to talk about here is recency bias. I think recency bias has really hit this line hard. When you take a look at what Arroyo has done, he's got a great skill set, power, kickboxer, built like a monster, has the ability, the finishing ability. I think he's got it there. But it's been a situation where his last 2 fights that he's fought, he against Duran Win and Andre Muniz, these are 2 grapple-heavy kind of guys who are looking to grapple, get in your face, get for the takedowns, not look to stand. And this is a spot here where Breeze, well-rounded fighter, but he's gonna really oblige standing and trading. So in a spot where you've got 2 guys that are really looking to, there isn't gonna be any takedowns, that has really been the issue with Arroyo. Going out there and, getting gassed out, getting the gassed out, not being able to, he'll really kind of just put out all of his energy early, and then he's not conserving anything for later. This is a spot where Breeze, coming off of a 2-year layoff, has had some wins, has had some losses. He came back and he lost to Brandon Allen. Then he came back and beat a terrible, who I just don't think is any kind, isn't even a caliber of UFC fighter, Katie Buller, who I think is just terrible overall. But he goes there and does get that knockout victory against him. And then and then most recently he was ragdolled around by Akhmedov. So I don't see how you can get to capping Breeze at -240. I can't see that. I think Breeze is definitely the favorite here. I think without a doubt he's the favorite here. but I would cap it a little bit closer to the minus 140 range than a minus 240 range. I think this line is way too wide. I think that the last two fights, especially the last one, was very, very ugly for Arroyo. Going out there, getting ragdolled, ran out of gas, didn't have any strength. I think this is a spot where they can both really stand and strike. They're going to be comfortable. Being the favorite this much, I can't get behind. If you like Breeze, I could say that yes, could he win this fight? Absolutely. I think he should be the favorite. But at this 205 price on Antonio Arroyo, I like him here in this spot. This is going to be a value play. I am not looking to hammer this one. This is not a client play. This is one where I'm fine with a little sprinkle at plus 205. I actually kind of like the under a little bit. Under 2.5 rounds at minus 130. I think there's a play there too, because I think both these guys are going to stand and trade. Tom Breeze is the kind of guy who's a kill or be killed kind of fighter. He's completely fine in the in the pocket. He's looking to exchange. Both these guys look to exchange. They've both been knocked out. They've both been beaten up. They both showed iffy kind of cardio and iffy IQ decision making. I think the under could be a little play there too, so I'm going to take a look at that a little bit deeper. But I think as an absolute value play, I do like Antonio Arroyo at plus 205 to get the victory as a nice value play. So those are my 2 free plays for UFC Fight Night 189. 5 client plays up for purchase. Link down in the description. Take a look if you want to get involved in that. Definitely, again, follow me, on Twitter at Kyle Anthony UFC. Follow me here, YouTube. Kyle Anthony's UFC Betting Show, and we will do this again next week. Big card next week. Very excited about it. Have a lot of plays I'm already looking at. So this week off was pretty nice. I was able to kind of get ahead a little bit. So it was good. Let's get in there. Let's cash out on Saturday, and I will see you the next time. And this is Kyle Anthony's UFC Betting Show, and I'll see you next time.